Where is it? You have to tell us truth. I can't believe you do this.
I never imagined the worst thing my son would ever call me wasn't mom. It was thief. The word didn't come with shouting at first. It came quietly, almost politely, across the kitchen island where we'd shared hundreds of Sunday dinners over the years. Mom, Ryan asked, his jaw tight, have you seen Melissa's grandmother's jewelry box? I smiled without looking up from the apple pie I was cooling on the counter. The little wooden one? I saw it in your bedroom a few weeks ago. It's gone. I shrugged gently. I'm sure it'll turn up. Then he asked the question that stopped my hands in midair. Did you move it? I laughed because it sounded ridiculous. Ryan, why would I move your wife's jewelry? He didn't laugh back. That's when I realized we weren't having the same conversation anymore. My name is Evelyn Carter. I'm 69 years old, a retired elementary school teacher from Columbus, Ohio. For 38 years, I taught children that telling the truth mattered, that patience solved more problems than anger ever could, and that people deserved to be heard before they were judged. I believed those lessons because I'd spent my life trying to live by them. Apparently, I was the only one. My husband, Thomas, passed away 3 years earlier after a long battle with heart disease. We had been married for 46 years. Losing him felt like someone had quietly removed the foundation beneath my feet. Every room in our home carried his fingerprints in one way or another. The shelves he built. The porch swing he installed. The old security cameras he insisted on putting around the property after a string of neighborhood break-ins nearly a decade ago. I barely remembered those cameras anymore. Most days, neither did anyone else. After Thomas died, Ryan started visiting more often. He was my only child, and I cherished every chance to spend time with him. His wife, Melissa, usually came along, bringing fresh flowers or a bottle of iced tea. Ryan worked as a financial advisor, and Melissa sold real estate. Their schedules were always packed, but Sundays belonged to family. At least they used to. The missing jewelry changed everything. Melissa's grandmother had left her a collection of antique jewelry that had been passed through 4 generations. She rarely wore it because it meant more to her than its monetary value. Inside that carved wooden box were rings, bracelets, necklaces, and one sapphire brooch she often described as priceless, not because of money, but because her grandmother had worn it on her wedding day. When the box disappeared, panic replaced reason. The first day, everyone searched. Closets. Drawers. Cabinets. Even the garage. By the second day, Melissa was crying. By the third, Ryan stopped asking questions and started making assumptions. I noticed the change in the way he looked at me. He no longer looked into my eyes. He watched my hands. Every movement seemed suspicious. Every answer sounded wrong before I even spoke. You were here alone Tuesday afternoon, he said while folding his arms across his chest. I watered your plants while you were at work. And nobody else came by? Not that I know of. He nodded slowly, but it wasn't agreement. It was calculation. I just need you to be honest. The sentence hurt more than I expected. I am being honest. Melissa stood near the dining room doorway, twisting a tissue between her fingers. I don't want to believe you'd take it, she whispered. Then don't. Silence filled the room. It was the kind of silence that grows heavier every second until breathing feels loud. Ryan finally spoke. If something happened financially, if you needed money. I stared at him. Are you asking if I stole from my own family because I'm old? No. But that's exactly what you're implying. He rubbed his forehead. I'm just trying to understand. No, I answered quietly. You're trying to prove something you've already decided. That night I barely slept. Every memory I had of raising Ryan replayed through my mind. His first bicycle. Helping with homework. Driving him to baseball practice before sunrise. Working extra tutoring jobs so he could attend college without crushing debt. None of those memories protected me from suspicion. By Friday, relatives started calling. Not to ask how I was. To ask whether there had been a misunderstanding. People always invent softer words when they're afraid of the truth. My sister-in-law phoned first. I'm sure everything will work itself out. So am I. Ryan says emotions are running high. I swallowed hard. Did Ryan also tell you he thinks I stole from him? The pause on the other end lasted long enough to answer the question. Saturday morning, Ryan arrived without calling first. He wasn't carrying groceries like he usually did. He carried a folder. He sat at my kitchen table without taking off his jacket. I've been reviewing some things. What things? Your finances. I blinked. My finances? You mentioned last month that the roof needed repairs. Yes. You also said your savings weren't what they used to be. I said retirement requires careful budgeting. He slid several printed pages across the table. I know exactly how much antique jewelry like Melissa's could sell for. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Not because I was angry. Because I couldn't believe my own son had researched the resale value of stolen jewelry before believing his mother. You think I planned this? I think people do desperate things. I'm not desperate. You don't have much income anymore. The words landed like stones. I had never asked Ryan for money. Never missed a mortgage payment. Never borrowed $1. Yet suddenly, my retirement made me look guilty. You know what hurts the most? I asked. He looked away. You've spent your entire career telling strangers to trust your judgment. I leaned forward. But somewhere along the way, you forgot to trust the woman who taught you right from wrong. His expression softened for only a second. Then it hardened again. I need you to come stay somewhere else for a few days. I frowned. What? Just until we finish sorting this out. You want me to leave my own house? It'll keep everyone calm. I almost laughed. Everyone except me. He sighed heavily. Mom, please don't make this harder. Harder. As though I were the problem. As though defending my own integrity was an inconvenience. I stood and walked to the living room window. Outside, the maple tree Thomas planted 20 years earlier was beginning to turn shades of amber and crimson. He always loved autumn. He used to say trees weren't dying. They were simply showing the world they weren't afraid to change. I wished I had his strength in that moment. Behind me, Ryan spoke again. If this is all a misunderstanding, you'll come back in a few days. I turned around slowly. And if it isn't? He didn't answer. He couldn't. Because somewhere deep inside, he had already written the ending to a story that hadn't even been proven true. I packed 2 suitcases that afternoon. Not because I believed I had done anything wrong. Because I finally understood that sometimes the people who should defend you first are the very ones who ask you to leave. When I stepped onto the front porch, Ryan reached past me and quietly locked the front door. The sound of that deadbolt echoed louder than any argument we'd had all week. It wasn't just a lock. It was the sound of trust breaking. I carried my bags to my car, trying to ignore the neighbors who pretended not to watch. Just as I opened the trunk, my next-door neighbor, Daniel Brooks, walked over with his usual coffee mug in hand. He studied my suitcases, then looked toward the house. Everything all right, Evelyn? I forced a smile. Oh, just giving everyone a little space. Daniel didn't look convinced. Instead, his eyes drifted toward the corner of the roofline above my garage. He frowned, as if trying to remember something. Then he looked back at me and asked a question that would change everything. Evelyn, whatever happened to those old security cameras Tom installed? Daniel's question caught me completely off guard. For a second, I simply stared at him. The security cameras? I repeated. He nodded. Tom was proud of that system. I remember helping him run cable through the attic. Didn't it record everything? I blinked. I honestly didn't know. After Thomas passed away, I never touched the equipment. The cameras had become part of the house, like the gutters or the porch light, something I noticed only when it stopped working. I haven't thought about them in years, I admitted. Daniel scratched his chin. If the recorder's still running, it might answer a lot of questions. Those words stayed with me all night. The next morning, Daniel came over with a flashlight and a small toolbox. We searched the basement until he pointed toward an old storage room beneath the stairs. There, he said. A dusty gray metal box sat on a shelf behind paint cans and holiday decorations. The tiny green power light was still blinking. It's been recording this whole time, Daniel whispered. Neither of us celebrated. We simply looked at each other. For the first time in days, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel. Hope. Ryan arrived an hour later after Daniel called him. He walked into the basement with folded arms, clearly expecting another disappointment. Melissa followed close behind, her face pale from too many sleepless nights. Daniel connected the recorder to an old television. The screen flickered. Rows of dates appeared. Thomas had organized everything carefully, just as he organized every tool in his workshop. Daniel selected the afternoon Melissa believed the jewelry disappeared. None of us spoke. The footage began. At first, nothing unusual happened. Melissa left for work. Ryan drove away a few minutes later. I arrived around lunchtime carrying a grocery bag. The camera showed me watering the flowers on the porch before unlocking the front door with the spare key they had given me years earlier. Inside, another camera overlooked the hallway. I walked through the kitchen, placed groceries on the counter, watered the plants near the dining room window, and wiped a small coffee spill from the countertop. After about 20 minutes, I locked the door and left. I never went upstairs. I never entered the bedroom. I never touched the jewelry. Ryan shifted uncomfortably beside me. Keep watching, Daniel said quietly. The recording continued. Nearly an hour after I left, movement appeared near the back patio. A large golden retriever squeezed through the partially open gate. Melissa gasped. Oh my goodness. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Bailey. He belonged to the family 2 houses away and had a habit of wandering whenever someone forgot to latch the gate. The dog nudged the back door, which hadn't fully closed behind me because the swollen autumn frame had failed to latch. Bailey wandered inside. He sniffed the kitchen, the hallway, the living room. Then he disappeared upstairs. No one moved. 30 seconds later, Bailey reappeared with something hanging from his mouth. The carved wooden jewelry box. He trotted happily through the kitchen, out the back door, and into the yard before disappearing beyond the fence. Silence filled the basement. No one breathed. Melissa covered her mouth with both hands. Ryan stared at the frozen image on the screen. His face had lost every trace of certainty. Daniel paused the video. I think, he said gently, we found your missing jewelry. Ryan looked at me. For the first time in a week, he actually looked into my eyes. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I didn't answer. Not because I wanted to punish him. Because I didn't yet know what words could possibly fit a moment like that. The 4 of us walked next door together. Bailey's owners were as surprised as we were. When Ryan explained what the video showed, they immediately helped search their backyard. It didn't take long. Behind a row of hydrangeas sat the wooden jewelry box, scratched and muddy but still intact. Inside were every necklace, every bracelet, every ring. Even the sapphire brooch. Melissa began crying before she finished opening it. Nothing was missing. Nothing had been sold. Nothing had ever been stolen. The only thing truly lost that week had been trust. Back at my house, Ryan waited until everyone else stepped outside. He stood in my living room surrounded by family photographs. Pictures of birthday parties, graduations, Camping trips. Christmas mornings. A lifetime of memories watched us from the walls. I don't deserve your forgiveness, he said. I folded my hands quietly. No. His eyes filled with tears. I let fear make decisions for me. You let assumptions make them. He nodded. I thought I was protecting my wife. I know. I never stopped to think about what I was doing to you. I looked toward the old portrait of Thomas hanging above the fireplace. Your father used to tell you something. Ryan smiled sadly. The truth doesn't get louder because more people repeat a lie. He hoped you'd remember that. Ryan lowered his head. I forgot. A few moments passed before he spoke again. When I locked that door. His voice cracked. I realized afterward that I wasn't locking you out. He wiped his eyes. That was the first moment I believed his apology came from regret instead of embarrassment. Melissa joined us quietly. She looked exhausted. I owe you an apology too. You were scared, I said. I was. She hesitated. But I should have searched for answers before accepting accusations. I nodded. Panic explains mistakes. I smiled gently. It doesn't erase them. Over the next several weeks, life slowly settled into a new rhythm. Ryan insisted on replacing the damaged back door latch. Melissa framed one of her grandmother's photographs beside the restored jewelry box instead of hiding it away again. Daniel refused every attempt to thank him. I didn't solve anything, he joked. Tom did. Maybe he was right. Thomas had trusted preparation more than luck. Even years after he was gone, his careful planning protected the family he loved most. Some evenings I still sit on the front porch beneath the maple tree he planted. The leaves eventually fell, just as they always do. But spring came again. It always does. Ryan visits every Sunday now. Not because he feels guilty. Because he understands that relationships require attention long before they need repair. Sometimes we laugh about Bailey, who still occasionally escapes his yard, though now every neighbor checks the gate before blaming anyone else. Funny how one mischievous dog taught our family a lesson we'd nearly forgotten. People are quick to believe what fits their fears. The truth usually asks us to be more patient. If you're fortunate, patience arrives before permanent damage does. I was lucky. Many families never get their security footage. Many never discover the truth hiding behind assumptions. What they lose isn't jewelry. It's each other. When I think back to that terrible week, I no longer remember the accusation first. I remember the moment Ryan looked at me after watching that recording. Not because the video proved I was innocent. Because it reminded both of us that trust should never depend on convenience. It should depend on character. And character is built over a lifetime, not destroyed by a single unanswered question. If my story has taught me anything, it's this. Before you accuse someone you love, make sure you've searched for the truth as carefully as you've searched for someone to blame. Sometimes the evidence isn't hiding from you. It's simply waiting for you to look in the right place.